UK policing and Freemasonry. 1 vote. The relationship between the police force and Freemasonry in the United Kingdom has long been a subject of intrigue, controversy, and speculation. Freemasonry, a fraternal organization that dates back centuries, operates under a shroud of secrecy, which has only added to the curiosity about its influence within institutions such as the police. While Freemasonry promotes charitable works and moral integrity, it also invokes concerns about potential conflicts of interest, especially when its members hold positions of power. The connections between UK policing and Freemasonry, as well as the concerns that have arisen from these connections, deserve careful examination. This essay will explore the historical links between the two, the potential issues of bias, accountability, and transparency that arise from such a relationship, and whether these links are inherently problematic. Historical context. Freemasonry originated in the late 16th and early 17th centuries, and by the 18th century, it had become a structured organization with a set of beliefs, rituals, and membership rules. In the UK, Freemasonry has grown into a sizable network with lodges spread across the country. The organization is secretive by design, and members often form strong bonds of loyalty. The appeal of Freemasonry to men in positions of power, including law enforcement, stems from its emphasis on fraternity, secrecy, and mutual aid. UK policing, especially in its formative years, attracted Freemasons. Many early police officers joined the Freemasons because the organization offered a way to forge professional relationships and access a network of influence. The 19th and 20th centuries saw a notable overlap between police officers and Freemasons, with some officers even organizing meetings within police precincts. As Freemasonry continued to attract members from various social and professional backgrounds, concerns about its influence within the police began to surface. Nature of Freemasonry and the police force. Freemasonry emphasizes fraternity, loyalty, and mutual aid among its members, which aligns with some of the core principles of policing, such as unity, camaraderie, and public service. However, the problem lies in the fact that Freemasonry also encourages loyalty to fellow Masons above all else, creating potential conflicts of interest, especially within a profession dedicated to impartial law enforcement. One of the primary concerns with Freemasonry's influence within the police is the possibility that members might protect one another, even at the expense of justice. For example, critics argue that Freemasons in law enforcement might provide preferential treatment to fellow Masons or cover up misconduct. Such concerns are magnified by the secretive nature of Freemasonry, which operates with little external oversight and a system of rituals and allegiances that could conflict with the principles of transparency and accountability necessary in policing. Concerns about accountability and transparency. One of the central issues regarding the relationship between Freemasonry and UK policing is the potential erosion of accountability and transparency. The police are entrusted with the power to enforce the law impartially, and the public expects them to carry out their duties with fairness and without bias. However, the clandestine nature of Freemasonry, coupled with the bonds of loyalty it fosters among its members, raises concerns that these values could be compromised. The secrecy surrounding Freemasonry makes it difficult to determine the extent of its influence within the police force. While membership is not inherently problematic, the concern arises from the possibility that Masonic allegiances might conflict with the duties of a police officer. For example, if two officers, one of whom is a Mason, are involved in an internal investigation, there could be concerns that the Masonic connection might skew the investigation's outcome. Moreover, there have been instances where allegations of corruption within the police force have involved Freemasonry. In the 1990s, for instance, concerns were raised that Masonic connections might have played a role in covering up police misconduct, particularly in cases where officers were investigated for serious crimes. The secrecy of Freemasonry made it difficult for investigators to determine the extent of these connections and whether they influenced the outcome of investigations. Parliamentary inquiries and public debate. Concerns about Freemasonry's influence within UK policing have not gone unnoticed by the government. Over the years, there have been multiple parliamentary inquiries and debates about the role of Freemasonry in law enforcement. In 1997, the Home Affairs Select Committee conducted an inquiry into the influence of Freemasonry within the criminal justice system, including the police force. The committee's findings were mixed, with some members arguing that Freemasonry posed a significant risk of undermining public trust in the police, while others maintained that there was little evidence to suggest that it had any undue influence. One of the recommendations from the inquiry was that police officers, judges, and other individuals in positions of authority should declare their membership in Freemasonry. This recommendation was met with resistance, as Freemasons argued that membership in the organization is a private matter and that requiring disclosure would infringe on personal freedoms. Despite these objections, some police forces adopted policies requiring officers to declare membership in any organization that might give rise to a conflict of interest, including Freemasonry. While the 1997 inquiry did not conclusively prove that Freemasonry was exerting undue influence within the police force, it did highlight the potential for conflicts of interest and the need for greater transparency. The inquiry also contributed to the ongoing public debate about whether secretive organizations like Freemasonry have a place in modern institutions such as the police, which are expected to be open and accountable to the public. Freemasonry and corruption in policing. The concern that Freemasonry fosters corruption within the police force has been a recurring theme in public discourse. While Freemasonry itself is not inherently corrupt, the bonds of loyalty it fosters can lead to situations where officers might feel compelled to protect fellow Masons, even if doing so goes against their professional responsibilities. Several high-profile cases of police corruption in the UK have raised questions about the role of Freemasonry. One such case is that of the notorious 1970s police corruption scandal in London, where a group of officers, some of whom were Freemasons, were found to have engaged in widespread bribery and collusion with criminals. While it is unclear to what extent Freemasonry played a role in this corruption, the fact that many of the officers involved were members of Masonic lodges fueled public suspicion. The case of Daniel Morgan, a private investigator who was murdered in 1987, is another example where Freemasonry has been linked to allegations of police corruption. Several investigations into Morgan's murder were hampered by allegations of police misconduct, and there were suggestions that Freemasonry might have played a role in obstructing justice. A 2011 report by the Metropolitan Police found that Freemasonry was a potential obstacle to solving the case, though it stopped short of directly linking the organization to the cover-up. These cases highlight the concerns that arise when Freemasonry is seen to intersect with policing. Even if Freemasonry does not directly foster corruption, its secretive nature and the strong bonds it creates between members can give rise to suspicions that it has an undue influence on law enforcement. Public trust and policing. The relationship between the police and the public is built on trust. For the police to effectively serve the community, they must be seen as impartial and free from outside influence. Freemasonry, with its secretive rituals and allegiances, can undermine this perception of impartiality, especially when officers are found to be members of the organization. Public concerns about the influence of Freemasonry within the police force have been exacerbated by the fact that the organization is often perceived as elitist and exclusive. Freemasonry's closed-door nature contrasts sharply with the principles of transparency and openness that are essential for maintaining public trust in the police. When members of the public believe that police officers may be part of a secretive organization with its own agenda, they may question whether the officers are truly serving the public interest. Additionally, the secrecy surrounding Freemasonry makes it difficult to hold officers accountable for any potential conflicts of interest that may arise from their membership in the organization. Without a transparent system for declaring membership in organizations like Freemasonry, it is impossible to ensure that officers are acting in the best interests of the public rather than protecting fellow Masons. Steps towards transparency. In response to growing concerns about the influence of Freemasonry within UK policing, several steps have been taken to increase transparency and reduce the risk of conflicts of interest. Some police forces have implemented policies requiring officers to declare their membership in any organization that could give rise to a conflict of interest, including Freemasonry. This move towards greater transparency is intended to ensure that officers are held accountable for their actions and that any potential conflicts of interest are addressed. Additionally, there have been calls for more rigorous vetting processes for police officers to ensure that they are not unduly influenced by external organizations. While Freemasonry is not inherently problematic, the potential for conflicts of interest means that officers who are members of the organization should be subject to greater scrutiny to ensure that their duties are not compromised. Despite these efforts, there is still ongoing debate about whether Freemasonry poses a significant problem for UK policing. Some argue that the concerns about Freemasonry are overblown and that the organization has little real influence within the police force. Others, however, maintain that the secrecy and loyalty inherent in Freemasonry make it incompatible with the principles of transparency and accountability that are essential for effective policing. Conclusion: the links between UK policing and Freemasonry have been a source of controversy for decades, with concerns about conflicts of interest, corruption, and a lack of transparency frequently being raised. While there is no definitive evidence that Freemasonry has exerted undue influence within the police force, the secretive nature of the organization and the strong bonds it fosters among its members have fueled suspicions and eroded public trust. At its core, the issue boils down to the need for transparency and accountability in policing. Freemasonry, with its emphasis on secrecy and loyalty, can create situations where these values are compromised. Whether or not the links between UK policing and Freemasonry are inherently problematic depends largely on the extent to which these potential conflicts of interest are addressed. Without adequate measures to ensure transparency, the relationship between the two will continue to be a source of concern.